Realizat în kickboxing, doamnelor și domnilor, se luptă pentru Storm. Let's give it up din Luton, United Kingdom, for Andrew Tate!
Introducing Chase DeMoor!
The craziest part about Andrew Tate versus Chase DeMoor isn't who won, how it ended, or even what happened in the ring. The craziest part is that this fight actually happened. For years, Andrew Tate boxing felt like one of those internet myths, something people argued about on podcasts, joked about on Twitter, clipped on TikTok, but never actually saw. And then suddenly, December 20th arrived, and the bell rang. This wasn't just another influencer boxing event. This wasn't two content creators putting on gloves for a paycheck. This was the moment where one of the most polarizing figures on the internet finally stepped into a boxing ring, live, under bright lights, with no filters, no edits, no escape. And the entire world was watching, waiting to see one thing. Was Andrew Tate real, or was he finally about to be exposed? Because make no mistake, this fight had pressure on it like nothing Misfits boxing has ever seen. Celebrities were weighing in, fighters were making predictions, streamers were placing public bets, everyone had an opinion, and everyone knew that whatever happened in that ring was going to ripple way beyond boxing. Before we even get into what people said after the fight, we need to rewind to the chaos before it ever started. The moment Andrew Tate versus Chase DeMoor was officially announced, the internet split clean down the middle. On one side, you had Tate supporters saying this was easy work. They were pulling up old kickboxing clips, talking about world titles, experience, mentality, pressure. The narrative was simple. Andrew Tate has been here before. He's built for this. Chase DeMoor is just another big guy with muscles and no real fighting pedigree. On the other side, you had skeptics lining up fast. People saying Tate hadn't fought in years. People saying kickboxing doesn't translate to boxing. People saying Chase is younger, bigger, active, and hungry. And then there was the third group, probably the biggest group, the ones who didn't care who won. They just wanted to see what happens when the Andrew Tate persona meets reality inside a boxing ring. That tension alone turned this into a global event. Celebrities started chiming in early. You had podcasters calling it dangerous, streamers saying it wouldn't be competitive, former fighters quietly saying this was a lot riskier than people realized. Even people who don't watch boxing were suddenly locked in, because this wasn't really about boxing anymore. It was about validation. KSI was skeptical about Tate's return. Before the fight, he questioned whether Tate would even go through with it, saying that losing would damage Tate's carefully built image. KSI leaned toward Chase winning simply due to activity and size, suggesting that ring rust, plus boxing-specific rules, could expose Tate quickly if Chase stayed disciplined. Aiden Ross was firmly on Tate's side. He repeatedly said the fight wouldn't be competitive and predicted Tate would embarrass Chase. Ross framed it as real fighter mentality versus influencer boxing, arguing that Tate's composure under pressure would separate him immediately. He claimed Chase would panic once the first clean shot landed. Aspinall took a measured stance. He acknowledged Chase's physical advantages, but said experience matters more in controlled chaos. He suggested Tate could win if he stayed calm early and avoided brawling, but warned that one clean heavyweight shot could flip the fight instantly. Logan leaned toward Chase based on size alone. He said heavyweight influencer fights often come down to who can absorb punishment longer, not who looks better technically. He admitted Tate's confidence was impressive, but questioned how it would translate once he was hit cleanly in a boxing ring. Dennis mocked the matchup, but admitted Tate's experience gave him an edge if the fight stayed technical. He warned that Chase's aggression could backfire badly if Tate timed him correctly. Jake Paul didn't make an official prediction, but implied skepticism about Tate's boxing transition. He hinted that boxing is a different world entirely, and suggested Chase's size and familiarity with the Misfits environment might give him an edge, while still acknowledging Tate's mentality as dangerous. Fournier predicted Tate would control the pace early, but warned that Chase's unpredictability made him dangerous. He believed Tate would need to stay sharp defensively and not underestimate Chase's willingness to turn it ugly. Liam Harrison was one of the most confident voices backing Tate. He publicly stated that people were underestimating Tate's striking background and ring IQ. Harrison predicted that Tate would expose Chase's lack of fundamentals, and that the fight wouldn't end well once Chase started loading up on punches without structure. Andrew Tate wasn't just fighting Chase DeMoor. He was fighting 5 years of internet narratives, every clip, every viral quote, every top G moment. Because once you step into that ring, none of that matters. You can't tweet your way out of a bad round. You can't mindset your way out of fatigue. And you definitely can't talk your way out of getting hit. Chase DeMoor knew that too. From his perspective, this was the biggest opportunity of his life. Not just for a belt, not just for a payday, but for relevance on a whole different level. Beating Andrew Tate doesn't just make you a Misfits champion. It puts your name into every headline, every reaction video, every debate. That's pressure most fighters never experience, let alone influencer boxers. And the celebrities watching, they knew it. You had people openly saying, if Tate wins, this changes influencer boxing forever. Others saying, if he loses, this whole image collapses overnight. That's the kind of stakes that turn a fight into a cultural moment. Fight night finally arrives, and the atmosphere is different. You can feel it even through the screen. This doesn't feel playful. This doesn't feel like a meme card. The walkouts alone tell the story. Chase DeMoor comes out looking locked in, serious, aware of the moment. But when Andrew Tate walks, the energy shifts. Love him or hate him, the presence is undeniable. The crowd reaction is loud, mixed, chaotic. That's when it hits. This is actually happening. And almost immediately, social media explodes. Celebrities who are watching live start reacting in real time. Tweets flying out mid-round. Streamers pausing gameplay to pull the fight up. Former fighters sending voice notes that get clipped instantly. Everyone is watching. Not just for punches, but for confirmation. Early in the fight, you could feel the tension in how people were reacting. Some were surprised by Tate's composure. Others were hyper-focused on Chase's pressure. Every exchange felt like a referendum on every prediction made beforehand. And that's where this fight became fascinating, because suddenly, the boxing world had to own their takes. Some celebrities who predicted Tate would fold early went quiet real fast. Others who backed him started getting loud. You could literally watch opinion shift round by round. What stood out the most wasn't just technique, it was composure. And that's what a lot of fighters watching picked up on immediately. You could see former boxers reacting not to the punches, but to the body language, the breathing, the pacing, the way Tate handled pressure, the way Chase handled expectations. And that's when the reactions started getting real. You had fighters saying, this is harder than it looks. You had veterans saying, people don't realize how much pressure he's under right now. You had others saying, this is exactly why boxing isn't a game. Celebrities who had joked about this fight suddenly shifted tone. Streamers who came in expecting chaos were now watching silently. Because once the bell rings, the spectacle becomes real. As the fight unfolded, one thing became clear. This wasn't a meme. This wasn't a joke. This was two men dealing with pressure in very different ways, under one of the biggest spotlights influencer boxing has ever seen. And regardless of how you felt about Andrew Tate going into this fight, watching him box answered one question that had been hanging over the internet for years. He wasn't hiding anymore. After the fight ended, that's when the second wave hit. Celebrity reactions flooded in, some shocked, some validated, some still in denial. You had people saying, I didn't expect that. Others saying, I told you so. Fighters breaking down what they saw, not emotionally, but technically, talking about timing, distance, conditioning, mental control. One thing almost everyone agreed on, this fight changed the conversation. Influencer boxing crossed a new line here, because this wasn't built around two YouTubers beefing. This was built around ideology, persona, legacy, and pressure. And that's why the reactions mattered so much. You even had celebrities admitting they were wrong, publicly, on camera. That almost never happens, but this fight forced it. Others doubled down, saying the real test is what comes next. And that might be the most important takeaway of all, because this wasn't the end of a story, it was the start of a new chapter. What does Andrew Tate boxing look like moving forward? Does this open doors to even bigger names? Does it validate years of talk? Or does it create even more scrutiny next time around? And what about Chase DeMoor? Win or lose, he just shared the ring with one of the most talked about figures on the planet. That changes how people view him permanently. The celebrities reacting weren't just reacting to punches. They were reacting to what this fight represents. The collision of internet culture and combat sports at full speed. This wasn't just a fight. It was a moment where the internet had to stop speculating and start reacting to reality. And whether you loved it, hated it, or watched out of pure curiosity, one thing is undeniable. Everyone was watching. Everyone had an opinion. and influencer boxing will never feel the same after this. Now, the real question isn't who won. The real question is, who's brave enough to step in next? Let me know what you thought of the fight, which celebrity reaction surprised you the most, and whether this moment changed your view on influencer boxing forever. Because like it or not, this was history, and it's only getting louder from here.